So this is David Evans. I'm here in Brasilia with Carlos Ragazzo. Have I pronounced that correctly, Carlos?
Almost. Good enough.
Okay. Carlos is the superintendent of CADE, and CADE, of course, is the antitrust authority in Brazil, and it's the only one now, as I understand. Carlos, there have been lots of changes in CADE recently, and Brazilian antitrust generally. I want to talk to you about that, but before we do that, let's talk about you just for a little bit. What is your role as superintendent of CADE?
I would say that I'm kind of the gatekeeper to all of the cases. Mainly all of the mergers. They first come to me, and whenever they have some sort of trouble, should I decide to challenge them, to impose remedies, then I have to go to the tribunal. So I kind of sort out what's a complex case from the simple, the fast-track cases. And that's merger-wise. Going to anti-competitive conducts, basically I do all of the investigation, and once I start a formal proceeding and I decide to impose a sanction for that, or even to shelve the case, then I would have to send the case to the tribunal. Their decision is final. I'm just the gatekeeper.
And before becoming superintendent, back at CADE before the new law, you were a commissioner. Is that correct?
Yes.
What's more fun, being a prosecutor, which is sort of the job you have, or being a judge, which is sort of the job that a commissioner has?
It's a very hard question to answer, because I used to be a cartel investigation before I actually became commissioner. So for me, it's nice to change roles. It's very hard for me to pick one, but it's nice for me because I've been in the council for 4 years, and to switch to the position of a prosecutor, for me it was something not new, because I used to be a cartel investigator, but it's nice to bounce back to what I used to do before. But it's kind of hard to choose, though.
Let's talk about CADE. As I understand it, the superintendent role that you have now used to exist outside of CADE and has been brought into it. Maybe if you could help us understand the changes that took place that have resulted in CADE having new responsibilities and the other authorities having their roles kind of wound down.
Oh, well, actually I have to go back a little bit to try to explain that. So the Brazilian system used to have 3 different bodies. One in the Ministry of Finance, the other one in the Ministry of Justice, and CADE, which was an independent agency. I'm kind of the result of these 2 bundle up together. So I would say that I am now what used to be the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Justice, which actually each one of them did investigatory work, either in mergers or in anti-competitive conduct. So they bundle up together in what now is the superintendent.
How have the changes, assuming they have, helped streamline the internal processes for handling mergers and abuse of dominance and cartel and other cases?
I'd say that it has improved a lot. First of all, not only because of the change in the structure, but also in the change in the regulation. Now we have a suspensory system. It's a pre-merger system. It wasn't like that before. And now a lot of people were concerned that we wouldn't take fast-track cases in a fast way. And this has been solved. We created a pre-merger notification office, which is pretty much like the one that you guys have in the U.S., to sort out the cases which are complex from the ones that which are not. And the results have been great. So the changes are structural, the changes are in the regulations, and the changes are in the management. We did a lot of benchmarking, trying to see what other people did all around the world to get the best practices, not only in the laws and the regulations, but also in the management solutions. And the results have been great. We actually have an average now of 20 days or less for analyzing fast-track cases. And for non-fast-track cases, but are not complex, really complex mergers, I would say intermediate mergers, we are having like a 40-day average, which is really, really good. Especially if you consider the number of people that we have here working for us.
That sounds great. Has it improved transparency and judicial certainty? Have the changes that have taken place in the law and the way you've implemented it at CADE so far Has it improved transparency, and do you think it will improve
I'd say that
certainty?
We've always been transparent.
Hmm.
CADE, I think, is one of the very few, if not the only antitrust agency that has a broadcast live of the sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually hear, there's a bit of a barrier with the Portuguese, but you can actually hear the sessions all over the world through the internet. So I would say that we've always been transparent. But I would say that also we got a little more certainty because it's a pre-merger regime rather than a post-merger regime. So people have less incentive to go to the judiciary because we don't have like 3 years after the case came in, a decision for rejection of the merger. This is not going to happen anymore. We have a timeline, we have deadlines for that, for the analysis, and it's a pre-merger stage. So I think it's going to be a reduction in these very complex cases. They're not going to go to the judiciary anymore. I don't see that happening anymore.
Well, let's talk about cartel cases just for a little bit. Have the changes affected your ability to impose significant fines on cartels, or had any other changes that relate to penalizing cartels?
I'd say that we are thinking about actually regulating a bit further, trying to implement several changes which were not in the law, the new law, especially to get second-ins and third-ins, because we didn't have that as clear as it should be. As you'd see, like in many other countries, you have specific sorts of ranges of rebates that you can give for collaboration from second-ins and third-ins. We didn't have that. We're trying to put that in public consultation right now.
So you've been engaged in some reforms of the leniency process?
Yes. I'd say for the whole process for cartel cases. And this is something that we did before for mergers, because it was something that we kind of have to have that ready at the time of the change, and now we're doing this in the cartel work.
Are there any challenges that you would say are particular to Brazil when it comes to competition advocacy, either because of the history of the country or because of stage of development you're in? Is there anything you think is interesting about Brazil when it comes to your role as an advocate?
I would say that the kind of difficulties that we have now in trying to convey this whole idea for the leniency for nationals, this is a challenge for us. And this is something that we're starting to overcome on account of these meetings with people actually from investment funds, from the business community as a whole, to try to explain then how the leniency program works. This is not as easy as it happens, like something like that happens in developed countries, because this is something that has been going on for several years. And it takes a while for the cartel cases to be judged and for you to grant immunity. So we have to explain them that we already have these cases. We already have cases in which you can get leniency. We already have nationals with leniency, with immunity. And to try to convey this idea is a particular challenge for us. But it's growing, I'd say.
How have changes in the law affected your enforcement efforts and your ability to deter anti-competitive behavior? Are there things that have happened that you think enhance your ability as a national competition authority?
I would say so, but in a very unusual way. Since we had three different bodies, it was kind of hard for people to know how the enforcement system works. And now it has become easier. People know, and the brand has become more important. The brand, CADE brand, it's more important now because people actually can pinpoint us as the competition agency. I think the structure challenge that we have now to integrate this, it's actually working very well, and this I think has improved a lot our image, and it will have an impact in enforcement as well.
How does the merger notification process change for, let's say, a multinational company that is doing a merger that needs to be notified in Brazil? Have there been significant changes there?
I'd say so, because Brazil used to be the last place for the decision, because it used to be a post-notification regime. So we didn't actually have to coordinate with the other jurisdictions, and now this has changed. So we have more certainty on whether we're going to have to meet. We will have a need to coordinate remedies or even to exchange views. So now we have a system in which We exchange views with other people from the other jurisdictions, with the EU, with the US. We have a model waiver, so people can actually, which is written both in Portuguese and in English. So we can expedite this process to talk to people overseas. And it's working well, actually, I would say.
Brazil is obviously a very large economy now, but it's also continues to be a rapidly growing one. I know you spend a lot of time talking to colleagues in other jurisdictions around the world, but I wonder if you could give us your perspective on what challenges you think CADE and you face in working in this particular environment where there's so much change going on, there's so much growth, it's such a dynamic place.
On one hand, I'd say that there's a lot of merger activity in Brazil because this consumer market is growing, and I don't know what to say. And on the other hand, access to data, which is very hard here. It's a huge country, and sometimes in the services market, for instance, you have places as far as the Amazon. To get all of the data, it's very hard for us to manage some of the cases.
But in terms of the dynamism of the economy and so forth, I would think that just because things are changing so much, that must present lots of challenges, both to you and to businesses here.
In that regard, I would say that we have the challenge to be faster in the analysis because the economy has to move on.
Right.
And some consolidation processes need us to see what kind of limits should be imposed in order to preserve competition and at the same time get the sector to go and to make it move faster in a way that can actually meet the needs for this new consumer growth that it's happening in Brazil. This is a challenge for us.
So what are the key cases that you're focused on as a superintendent, and what do they mean for antitrust enforcement in Brazil?
We're now focusing on cases, cartel cases, which are leniency related. This is because this is a message that we want to send out to people that leniency is very important to us, and we're going to try to deal with these cases in the faster way that we can, so we can grant immunity to the people that come to us with the data, with the leniency application. This is a challenge for us. We will have to improve that, and I think we will in a short while. And I would say that in the other sorts of cases which are very interesting to me, but I wouldn't be able to mention one, just not to to raise a flag, would be sham litigation cases. So we can start to discuss intellectual property and this whole relation with the judiciary.
Why don't we finish with just a few things on you? I know you have a number of degrees and you spent some time in the States. Maybe just give us a little bit of background.
I have a law degree from the Catholic University in Rio de Janeiro. And then I went to the U.S., got an LLM from NYU, took the bar exam.
The New York bar?
Yes.
So you were forced to learn a lot of useless information, even if you were an American.
The rule of perpetuities is something that's really going on in my head.
Did you have to take the ethics exam?
I did, and I managed to pass.
Excellent.
I took the bar. I actually am a New York lawyer. And
I wouldn't brag about that.
Don't worry. And then I went back to Brazil. I got a master's degree and a PhD.
PhD from?
From the University of the State of Rio de Janeiro.
In law? In
law.
Very good. And I assume you don't spend all of your time here at CADE running the job as superintendent and managing cases. Do you have any things you like to do outside of the office, any hobbies, anything?
I actually teach also.
Yes.
At Fundação Getúlio Vargas in Rio de Janeiro. And I love spending time with my son.
That sounds great. How old is he?
He's 1.5.
Very good.
So it's on one side it's a challenge, and the other one is the best thing that has ever happened in my life.
I'm sure that's right.
Yes.
Carlos, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Best of luck with all the new and exciting things that are going on at CADE, and hope to catch up with you at some point in the future.
Yeah, me too. It was a pleasure. Thank you.